In this lesson, we're going to move to the client side of SOAP-based services. To that end, I'm going to review a command that you saw earlier, a curl command that was used to verify that the RAN service was up and running. So I'm going to run that command again. You see it in my bash shell. And when I run it, as you can see, the screen fills with XML. That's the XML schema for the RAN service. We'll look at some details later. Let me clear the screen and run a slightly different request against the web service. This time, I'm going to ask for the WSDL, Web Services Definition Language Document. That's the service contract. It includes the XML schema as a part. So let me run that. As you can see, the screen again is filled with XML. We'll look at this in some detail a bit later. First, however, I'd like to put that WSDL to good use. So I'm going to use the WSImport utility. If you have Core Java 6 or greater, this ships with Core Java 6. It's in the bin directory along with the compiler and so forth. -P for package. So I give a package name. I'm just going to use client. Any name would do. This is going to create a subdirectory that's going to be populated with a bunch of Java files. -keep. This makes sure that I get the source code. Otherwise, I'd get only the compiled code, the .class files. And now the URL for the WSDL, localhost 8080. I'm using the Tomcat publication of the service, rand ?WSDL. There's some confirmation messages. Let me now show you that client subdirectory. There's a mix of .class and .java files. We'll talk about the details of those in a bit. But the two important files for us right now are the rand service.java file, that's in the middle of the second column at the bottom, and the rand service.java class. I'll explain why that name came about a bit later. Let me now move to some client code that's going to use what I'm going to call the WSImport artifacts. In other words, the Java code generated using WSImport. I have a client already built called the RAN client. I'm going to compile it. It uses the code that we just looked at, and now, of course, I'm going to run it as proof of concept. So the client has made a call against the RAN service. In the output, you can see the first value returned, -720, and so forth. That's returned from a call to next one. And then the 6 values below that are returned from a call to next n, the 2 operations in that RAN service. Now let's look at that RAN client code. So this is the working file ranclient.java. And as you can see at line 1, there's an import for client.ranService. That's one of those artifacts created by WSImport. The second line, client.ranService, this is actually an interface, and it too was generated by WSImport. So here's how we put those to use. Down here at line 3, we create an object reference, in this case called port. You'll see later why this name is significant, but any name again would do. And that's created by invoking a constructor to get an object and then invoking the getRanServicePort method on that object. And I'll come back and explain this idiom in more detail a bit later. Once we have the object reference, it's all smooth sailing. So for example, at line 4, here's a call to the next one operation. And down here at line 5 is a call to the next n operation, and then a little for loop to print out the values. The thing to notice again is the obvious. There's no XML, let alone SOAP XML, visible anyplace here. All of the serialization is done under the hood. Most of the code has been generated for us by the WSImport utility. So what we're going to do in forthcoming lessons is take a closer look at the WSDL and use that to get a better sense of exactly how this client code is organized.